Chapter 31. The Blizzard. You fools! You absolute fools! What could possibly make you think that this could end in any other ways than disaster? Invading Vix in the mid-fall. I've never seen a calculation so foolish! A decision so laughably stupid even a baby could be able to do better! Jan Jansen. So, as planned, we set out for Fort Pilk the next morning, not just staying in the basement, and Eileen's family giving us warm clothes. The journey went smoothly until Tula, when we got caught in a growing blizzard and had to flee to the nearest tavern. Footnote, Tula is the third weekday of the Thalai calendar. All right, Luzelus said, once we were inside. I can accept snow in the fall, but this is just ridiculous. Pavokit nodded in agreement. Filling shrugged. This is Northern Vix. They've probably been having snow since Ollie's. Luzelus blinked. Ollie's? Ilika shook her head. No, wasn't it already snowing at our wedding? He frowned. Was it? She stared at him in disbelief. You don't remember the weather at your own wedding? We were in a mountain. She nodded. Fair. So it looks like we're stuck here until the storm gives, Filling said. What should we do until before then? Well, said Farnka, I guess there's a little underused consort. It's been too long since we played. Filling looked at her blankly. What? Farnka smiled. Well, all of us except Pavokit play an instrument, so we call ourselves the Twilight Consort. We don't have a singer or Nocha with us, but they're still a trio. She looked at Pavokit. Maybe a quartet. Can you sing? He shrugged. I'm not sure. I might remember a few war songs. All right, Farnka said. Trio then. What should we play? Galliard, waltz, polonaise? I laughed. I seriously hope you weren't just suggesting playing a Galliard in a tavern. They'd probably destroy the place. Shadela normally could be fun, but I don't think Pavokit would be able to sing it. Even if he could, I don't think it would be received well, Lucelus suggested. What's that? Farnka asked. It's a war song about apples, she replied. I blinked. The one that gets parodied? Pavokit frowned. Why would you write a war song about apples? Lucelus shrugged. Very young soldiers. It's what we call a rule. When you think something will be one way, but it isn't. You wouldn't expect a war song to be about fruit. She frowned. Why do you know about the parodies? Sina sang one once, or chanted one. I don't know what it meant, but I think it was in Mod 1. I frowned. Or maybe Mod 2. It's pretty low. I see. I've never heard of one like that. Maybe she made it up. I shrugged. Maybe. Back to the apple song. If it's a horse song, we should probably just play the melody, Anka said. If it were Pavokit singing, maybe they'd think it was some kind of satire, I said. Maybe, but I don't know how good that would sound. Lucelus said. Pavokit looked a little bit offended. I think I could sing it. Even if you could, the soldiers here can probably recognize Sylish but not understand it, so they wouldn't get the joke. Farnka pointed out. I think we should just play the melody with no singing. Lucelus nodded. I think Farnka should play the soprano, I should play the alto, and Syl should play the bass. He blinked and looked at her. What? Farnka said. Lucelus smiled. What, did you think that Sylish folk music would only be one line? I sighed. Not polyphony, I hope. Not this one. Homophony. I sighed. That's fine, I guess. She spent a few hours teaching us our parts. It was at a moderate tempo and double compound time. A minor key, or mode 9, thank you. But it wasn't really sad. And we decided on an F though, because that worked best with our fingers. With our ranges. Of course, the bartender said when we asked him. It gives us something to do while waiting for the storm to die down besides getting drunk. Then he smiled a little sheepishly and added, not to be rude, but how did your group form? Farnka smiled. Oh, it's fine. Our friend here fled to Vix from the Commonwealth. We took her in and decided to start traveling and playing together. I see. Well, no one's up there right now, so feel free to start anytime you like. Thank you, Hector. went up and played the war songs, and Luce and I joined on Re and La, while Juanca improvised a spirited melody in Mode 1, which got many clapping and tapping to the beat. Before she finished, she looked at me and stepped back, droning on La. I stepped forward and improvised my own tune, a more somber one taking cues from the funerary chants and using fewer ornaments. I ended on Re and held that out to continue the drone as Luce took over. Like me, she began with a more somber melodies, but that soon turned to a more spirited tune, like Juanca's. She ended with a trill on Re. Juanca quickly moved to Faz, where some modernists like to end, but soon returned to La before we all ended on a quick breath. Garden, Juanca whispered. I nodded, understanding what she meant. It was a Vixic poem written in Draconic about a little farm girl named Ili, who wanted her own garden. Her father agreed because he couldn't think of a reason why he shouldn't, and he thought it would be a good way to build up her strengths. So she planted it, but being a little girl, even if she was the daughter of a farmer, didn't really know how to plant, so not much grew in it. She ended and said she sold fruit and tea, which meant he said she eventually figured out gardening or worked on her father's farm. Now, being a Vixic song about a girl with a father, she was, of course, a metaphor for Vix. Mama and Papa had said it was meant to make fun of what Draco thought of us, a weak child. The implications that Ili eventually learned how to grow a garden showed that even though we'd lost our independence many times, we'd also gained it back many times. Another thing was that it said Ili was, at the end of the song, was an Anka, which referred to an unmarried woman of marriageable age, which symbolized how Syl and Draco were often portrayed as controlling parents who never let Vix do anything, like get married. In addition to this, metaphors for Vix were also given names that could either be for a boy or a girl, like Ili, because we usually thought of our country as feminine, but in every other language it was grammatically masculine. Keeps it drawn, I whispered to Luce. We continued droning on Re and La, where Juanca began to sing the song. The original tune was bright and rhythmic in Mode 1, like a galliard, but the modernist composer Cretan Tisserand had arranged it into a madrigal, with the first and last verses being slower polyphony, and the middle ones being the faster galliard style with added parts. Of course, that was the version Juanca decided to sing. The faster verses were easy to speed up, as it continued on, and often did when unaccompanied, but our steady notes kept it from rushing. We took turns improvising various flourishes and ornaments between the verses, and as the song continued, we began to double the melody at times, with added ornamentation. We finished or played 1.5 grupetki, and returned towards the others, filling with grinning. Beautiful, I see why you call yourselves a consort. Ilika nodded. UotT is one of my favorites. Camouflaged patriotism, and such a fine melody. Vix at its finest. Footnote, the translation of UotT is Ili's garden. Pavokit blinked. That last one was Sylish? Luce for a similar expression. Hanka nodded. And it's supposed to sound draconic. On the surface, it is a story about a girl who has a lot of enthusiasm, but don't know how to grow a garden. But look deeper, and it becomes a satire of what Draco thinks of Vix, she explains the meaning. You see, it is interesting. Starting to think that all Vixic folklore is secretly patriotic, said Pavokit. I nodded. That would be because it is. Filling chuckled. What did this playwright mean when he made the main character a girl with terrible parents and the story about her escaping them? Is it exactly what it sounds like, or a metaphor for Vix's battle with independence? It's the second. If the playwright is Vixic, it's always the second. There turned out to be several other musicians staying in the tavern, and since, as the bartender said, there was not much to do until the storm died down, they ended up performing as well. The Kronyafo played the sackbut, a trio made up of a dragon, Vix, and a Nata, and a dead-aside friar who sang beautiful chants. A large group of strange creatures like tall, wingless fairies with pointed ears who played all different instruments and sang in the same strange language, and a Sylish troubadour singing in his dialect and playing his lute. We asked Luz to translate his words, but her face reddened and she just responded with, he's saying the Emperor is a bad husband and elaborating on it. It became a little bit of a game after a while, each group trying to be more impressive than the last, until we just all decided to perform together. The strange creatures mentioned they came from across the sea, so the friar jokingly asked if they know of the Dodechia. They didn't understand what he was talking about. We all suggested pieces to each other, and after much argument, eventually someone's reduction in the arrangement of Didalos or Adeliros's Dihaf. I sighed. Modernists, I grumbled. The little girl with the strange creatures, Piki, looked up at the name. Creation, what does that mean? The boy with them, Scott Kitk, nodded. One of the strange creatures, Kirpel, shrugged. I don't know. Do you know, brother? Well, the title of the piece is Hope, and the composer's epithet means monk. But he wasn't one himself, said the friar, brother Scholl. Kiki scowled. No, not the song! What the grumpy boy said! Juanka stifled a laugh. I glared at her. Pihaya, don't be rude, said Kirpel. Don't listen to him, Pihilia! Call everyone by a single character trait, said another Texoniat, grinning. Pihi and Scotty did as well. Kirpel said, Texoniat, please. I think we should write our own piece, said another of the strange creatures, Ixant. The troubadour Shaw nodded. Why play someone else's piece when we can play our own? Special arrangement. What's the point of them anyway? Accessibility? It's hard to find a choir with that many people, said Brother Shaw. What does it sound like? Scotty asked. Brother Shaw smiled. The most beautiful motet there is. The closest we can be to hearing the voices of the angels themselves. He grinned. Then what are we waiting for? Give me the music! So after learning what we should do, we learned the piece, which was polyphonic, but I had to admit it was beautiful. Maybe the adolescents were onto something was beyond. And the people loved it. Brother Shaw was smiling, and Scotty and Piki were grinning. I think I understand what Kaliy was saying now, the girl said. I want to be a nun too! Kirpo smiled. Because, you don't become a nun just for the music. I guess it's fine, I muttered. For polyphony. Quadra smiled. He means he likes it. The storm died down about a day later, and we left soon after. Ixant and his strange group said they were going to try to return to their home across the ocean. Brother Scholl had work to attend to back in Adelas, but the troubadours, the Sackbattist, and the trio were going to keep traveling. We said that as well, as it was technically true, but unlike them, probably one of them was Vixik. We had a destination in mind. Nocha. Kezia burst into our room and quickly shut the door with her back, grinning. Her hands clasped together so that her sleeves overlapped some, in the manner of some of the more proper, old-fashioned nobles. I hopped up from my bed, abandoning my writing practice, so I had mostly been doodling on it, and ran up to her, happy to see her again. You are back, I said. She smiled. So I am. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, and she crouched to be at eye level with me. And I have a little present, Piedrocia. But shh, it is a secret. I grinned. We sat down on the side of my bed opposite the door, so that anyone who came in would not see what we were doing. Kezia lowered her arms carefully, and I saw that something was concealed in her sleeves. She parted her hands, revealing what was inside, and letting it sit on her lap. Something wrapped in a towel. Something that smelled like fresh pastries. I fidgeted with anticipation as she unwrapped it. Biscuits! I exclaimed, grinning. She smiled. Yes, but keep your voice down, Piedrocia. The cook managed to sneak some to me. I let out a giggle of excitement and examined the biscuits. Most were flaky, filled with various types of jams and nuts, while the rest were crumbly, just a light brown from cinnamon, or layered and filled with nut base. Even a couple that were dark brown from chocolate. I took a chocolate one instead of it. Chocolate was incredibly rare and expensive, only grown in the most western and southern reaches of Seoul, parts that were often not even shown on maps. It was said to be quite bitter and raw, but also was the potential to be quite sweet. I bit into it, a bit nervous, but it was sweet. Quite sweet, rich, like nothing I had ever tasted. If the sound of the viola da gamba was a biscuit, it would taste like this. She smiled. Do you like it, Biedrocia? I nodded, too overwhelmed to say something. She grinned and we ate. Many years later, I realized she had only ever taken one biscuit. I thought about Asina's disappearance. It had been days by then. Surely if it were a mercenary, they would have sent a message. Like what happened with Sol and Pavokit. So it could not have been a mercenary, but then who? Who else would want some Sylish girl? Was she arrested? Disappeared, never to be seen or heard mentioned again, like so many of Kazelia and Sonyelia's neighbors? In that case, there was practically no chance of finding her, so I decided to ignore that possibility unless all the others were ruled out. Besides, she was valuable, both as leverage against me and Pavokit. So with the possibility of the Synisans mostly ruled out, that really only left one thing, the Mafia. Smugglers, gladiators, slavers, people looking for a quick ransom. The criminals looking for a quick ransom would have sent a message, so I doubted it was them. As I narrowed it down, that most of the remaining options would be quite difficult to locate. A smuggler would probably be halfway to Sol by now, as the other two could be practically anywhere, but would mostly be stationary. Gladiator ring would probably be in the middle of nowhere, or underground, or both. The slaver would probably take it to some rich noble and good favor with the Emperor, or cross the border to some rich in Sol who could avoid suspicion. The former had more options, but the latter would be hard to investigate without any informants. I sighed. How else could I narrow it down? What else could I rule out? Who? Who would want some Sylish girl? Smugglers would have the most possibilities. Were they trying to help people escape from the Empire, whether they wanted it or not? Was there something more nefarious? Who knew? Gladiators would be looking for powerful fighters, 2 words that I would hesitate to apply to Asina. She was short, thin, and had bad eyesight, so how bad I did not know. I had never actually seen her fight, so I could not be entirely sure. Slavers would be looking for young, strong workers, perhaps with a useful skill. She was young, though still a child, and very strong. She could use magic, but whoever had done this would need to know that, and she was smart enough not to use it in public. I sighed. This was unhelpful. I was left with the question I had started with. Who had taken her? And why?